2:30 a.m. In exactly 120 minutes, a $400 million Russian Kilo-class submarine will be gutted at its own dock, sinking into the harbor mud. Out in the pitch-black swells of the Black Sea, a Ukraine's 30-foot fishing trawler coughs black smoke into the night air. The deck is cluttered with dirty nets, and the smell of rotting mackerel is strong enough to make eyes water. To the Russian radar operator scanning from a Project 22160 Corvette 5 miles ahead, the blip registers as nothing more than civilian traffic. He ignores it. He ignores. That is a fatal calculation. Beneath the false floorboards, buried under layers of ice and fish guts, lies a modular weapon bay that costs more than the boat itself. Inside are 6 secret passengers, high-tech fiber-optic FPV drones. Each unit weighs just 22 pounds but packs a 6.6-pound high-explosive warhead capable of cracking a submarine's pressure hull. Crucially, they are tethered by spools of micro-thin glass cable, making them completely immune to the electronic jamming that protects the Russian fleet. Hundreds of miles away in Odessa, a Ukrainian operator codenamed Fisherman watches the telemetry via a secure Starlink connection. He is tracking that Russian corvette ahead, using the enemy warship as an unwitting pilot fish to guide him past the minefields and straight into the safe haven of Novorossiysk. The countdown to the harbor mouth is running. 4:15 a.m., the trawler creeps into the outer roadstead of Novorossiysk, merging into a chaotic highway of oil tankers and commercial freighters. The operator in Odessa keeps the throttle pinned at a boring 12 knots, forcing the vessel to plod along like it has nowhere to be. This is the counterintuitive genius of the plan. Typically, Ukrainian naval drones like the Magura V5 rely on blistering speed to survive, sprinting at 45 knots to outrun machine gun fire. But speed creates a wake, and wakes attract attention. To bypass the layered defenses of a paranoid naval base, you don't need to be a Ferrari, you need to be a minivan. Then, the nightmare scenario unfolds. A Russian Project 03160 Raptor patrol boat cuts aggressively across the bow, its blinding LED searchlight sweeping the deck of the fishing boat. The remote weapon station on the Raptor's roof swivels, aiming a 14.5mm heavy machine gun directly at the wheelhouse. One short burst would turn the wooden hull into toothpicks and detonate the hidden payload instantly. On deck, the disguised Ukrainian Special Forces operatives do not reach for their rifles. Instead, they commit to the act. They wave casually at the blinding light and kick open a crate of the day's catch, letting the beam illuminate the bloody, glittering scales of 100 mackerel. The stench of fish guts drifts across the water, hitting the Russian crew. Seeing only tired locals and smelling a mess they don't want to deal with, the Russian commander loses interest. The searchlight clicks off and the Raptor accelerates away to harass a different vessel. The Fresh Fish cover story just bought them a ticket past the first ring of steel. 05:10 a.m. As dawn bleeds over the Caucasus Mountains, the massive steel barges guarding the harbor entrance slide open to allow the Russian corvette to dock. This is the moment of truth. The fishing trawler doesn't bolt for the gap. Instead, it loiters near the entrance buoys, drifting lazily with the current as if waiting for a better spot to cast nets. Through the high-resolution zoom of the onboard cameras, the fisherman in Odessa gets his first clear look at the jackpot. The inner harbor is packed tight. 2 improved Kilo-class submarines, the $400 million black holes of the Russian Navy, are moored stern-in against the concrete piers. Cranes are visible overhead, likely reloading their vertical launch cells with fresh-caliber cruise missiles destined for Ukrainian power grids. The defenses are staggering. The water around the subs is ringed by floating security barriers and watched by 30mm shore batteries capable of shredding a surface drone in seconds. Overhead, the thump-thump-thump of a Mi-8 helicopter hammers the air. The chopper is flying a low grid pattern, dropping sonobuoys into the water to listen for the electric hum of underwater kamikaze drones. The helicopter dips its nose, sweeping directly over the trawler. The downdraft kicks up spray across the deck, but the Russian pilot is looking for the wrong threat profile. He is trained to hunt high-speed wakes and sleek composite hulls. When his eyes scan the battered wood, the piles of nets, and the slow, plodding wake of the trawler, his threat assessment logic fails. To a modern military mind, slow equals safe. He banks away to scan the open water, completely unaware that he just flew over the mothership of the fleet's destruction. 5:15 a.m. With the Russian defenses focused outward, scanning the open sea for high-speed suicide boats, the fisherman executes the core innovation of the operation. The trawler, now seemingly anchored near a cluster of barges, looks dead in the water. But beneath the fish-stained deck plates, the hydraulic locks of the concealed compartments disengage silently. 6 dark shapes rise vertically from the hold. These are not standard quadcopters, they are the fiber-optic variants, each trailing a microfilament of glass cable connected to the mothership. This is the tactical checkmate. Russian electronic warfare systems are currently blasting the spectrum with noise, creating an invisible shield that would sever the connection of any standard radio-controlled drone instantly, but they cannot jam a physical wire. The drones drop immediately to wave-top height, hovering just 3 feet above the black water. They don't need to ram the floating security nets or dodge the heavy machine guns designed to sink surface vessels. They simply fly over them. The Russian sailors on the nearby patrol boats are completely blind to this vector. Their threat models are built around stopping fast attack boats crashing into the pier. They have no protocol for a swarm of aerial munitions launching from a friendly civilian vessel already inside the perimeter. The drones accelerate silently toward the inner harbor, unspooling miles of unjammable command cable behind them like an unbreakable fishing line. The target is no longer a blip on a radar screen. It is a physical object filling the camera lens, and the enemy is still looking the wrong way. 05:18 a.m. The Russian defenses are paranoid, and the Mi-8 helicopter returns, hovering dangerously low over the trawler. Its downdraft whips the fishing nets across the deck, and the door gunner trains his weapon on the crew. They are seconds away from being vaporized on suspicion alone. In Odessa, the fisherman plays his diversionary card. He activates 3 standard radio-controlled decoy drones hidden in the trawler's superstructure. They rocket upward, emitting a massive electronic signature and flashing strobe lights. They sprint away from the harbor mouth, banking hard toward the open sea. The Russian threat response is Pavlovian. The air defense grid lights up, shore-based 30mm cannons and the helicopters swivel instantly to engage the fleeing targets. Tracers tear through the dawn sky, hunting the loud, bright distractions. The Russians believe they have flushed the attackers and are cutting them down. While every Russian eye and sensor is locked on the aerial fireworks show 3 miles out, the real executioners make their move. The 6 fiber-optic drones, skimming inches above the chop, slip through the narrow gap between the harbor barges. A stray round from the shore battery skips off the water and obliterates one of the fiber drones in a spray of plastic and glass. The feed goes dead, but the remaining 5 survive the gauntlet. Inside the harbor control room, the radar operator watches the decoys disappear from his screen and relaxes, taking a sip of coffee. He dismisses the faint, low-level movement near the submarine pens as migrating whales or sea clutter. He has no idea that the clutter is currently zigzagging at 60 miles per hour toward the Kilo-class subs, performing terminal evasion maneuvers that are physically impossible to jam because the control signals are traveling through a glass wire, not the air. The trap has snapped shut. 05:20 a.m., the distance closes to 500 yards. Through the digital feed, the Kilo-class submarine stops being a silhouette and becomes a terrifyingly detailed reality. The camera captures the rivets on the black hull and the rust streaks on the waterline. The scene on the submarine's stern is a study in fatal complacency. Through the drone's zoom lens, the operator sees 2 Russian sailors leaning against the railing, sharing a lighter. They are laughing, likely joking about the false alarm regarding the decoys, completely oblivious to the 5 shape-charged warheads screaming toward them at terminal velocity just above the wave tops. In the bunker in Odessa, the fisherman is the polar opposite of relaxed. His knuckles are white, his breathing shallow. He nudges the throttle forward, pushing the motors to their red line. The drones surge to 80 miles per hour, closing the final gap. Suddenly, a lookout on the pier screams. The sailors on the stern freeze, spotting the approaching swarm. Panic erupts. They raise their rifles, firing wildly into the water. A shore-based heavy machine gun opens up, churning the harbor water into white foam, but the angle is too steep and the targets are too small. The fiber-optic drones dance through the spray, weaving effortlessly around the tracers. 10 seconds. The target point is locked, the complex brass propeller assembly and the vertical rudder. It is the submarine's Achilles heel, millions of dollars of sensitive propulsion engineering exposed to the open air. 5 seconds. The Russian sailors scramble for the hatch, abandoning their posts. The operator in Odessa aligns the crosshairs on the center of the drive shaft and whispers a final benediction into the empty room. Good night. 5:21 a.m. The first 3 drones slammed directly into the stern of the Kilo-class submarine, detonating their 6.6-pound high-explosive warheads milliseconds apart. The physics of the blast are devastating. Because water is non-compressible, the shockwave from the underwater portion of the explosion hits with a hammer blow of 5,000 psi. The massive 7-blade brass propeller, a masterpiece of acoustic engineering designed to run silently, is instantly twisted into a useless pretzel of metal. The vertical rudder shears off completely, tumbling into the harbor mud. But the violence isn't over. The 2 remaining drones overshoot the first target and dive into the gap between the submarine and the concrete pier. They strike the auxiliary diesel fuel manifolds running along the dock. A fireball erupts, climbing 120 feet into the morning air, turning the dawn sky black with heavy, oily smoke. The shockwave cracks the reinforced concrete of the pier, causing a 60-foot section to collapse into the water, dragging a shore crane down with it. The second submarine, moored alongside, is peppered with shrapnel and flying concrete, its sensitive sonar coating stripped away by the blast pressure. Satellite imagery taken hours later confirms the catastrophic success. One improved Kilo-class submarine is listing heavily to port, sitting on the bottom of its shallow berth. It hasn't sunk completely, but strategically it is dead. With its propulsion system destroyed and pressure hull compromised, it will never dive again. It is now a $400 million paperweight. Repairing this level of damage requires a dry dock that Russia currently doesn't have available in the Black Sea, meaning this asset is off the board for at least 24 months. The strategic ripple effect is even more damaging than the explosion itself. The myth of the safe haven is dead. Novorossiysk was the last refuge for the Black Sea Fleet after they were chased out of Sevastopol. Now they have nowhere left to hide. The economic blow is the final insult. To prevent another Trojan horse attack, Russian security forces are forced to implement draconian search procedures for every single vessel entering the harbor. This creates a massive bottleneck for the commercial oil tankers and fishing fleets that keep the local economy alive. Traffic grinds to a halt. By destroying one sub, Ukraine has effectively blockaded Russia's own port using Russia's own paranoia.